I just learned I'm doing the morning reading. The first is an excerpt from the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, chapter 16. Empty yourself of everything. Let the mind rest at peace. The 10,000 things rise and fall while the self watches their return. They grow and flourish and then return to the source. Returning to the source is stillness, which is the way of nature. The second reading is an excerpt from a call to worship for collective care by Cole Arthur Riley from her recent book, Black Liturgies. Loving God, we confess that we are so accustomed to pushing through an exhausted state that we come to expect the same from those nearest to us. We mirror the demands made of us and dissociate from the reality that these demands have harmed us, have left us anxious and unwell. Reorient our souls to self-care. We want more for one another than the same expectations that haunt us, the same brutal experience of living within the systems of this world. Free us from resentment and envy as we bear witness to the prophets in our lives who practice rest and boundaries well. Let them be our guides to deeper freedom. Help us to never get used to being used. We were made for more. And together we possess the mysterious power of regeneration wrapped up in our bones. May it be so. Good morning, New Garden. It is a joy to be with you here this morning, to see some familiar faces and some new faces and some newly familiar faces. Today, I want to talk with you about Sabbath and rest, those holy and spiritual practices that are more deeply embedded in some faith traditions than others. Because we are together in this room this morning, I'm guessing that we have collectively experienced the kind of culture that Cole Arthur Riley names in this morning's reading when she talks about pushing through exhausted states that leave us anxious and unwell. And we are also here, I imagine, because of the conviction that there is more to life than busyness. Don't the world's great mystics and spiritual traditions have something to say about that? This morning, I want to briefly mention three: Judaism, Taoism, and Quakerism. The Hebrew word for rest is menucha, although it is better translated as joyous repose, tranquility, or delight. The key idea is that creation was not fully finished until God rested. God did not finish creation and then rest. Rest is part of the fabric of creation. Made in God's image, human beings are also called to balance labor with repose that delights in the world. I hear the poet singing, "Glory be to God for dappled things." Rabbi Abraham Heschel describes the Sabbath as a cathedral in time, a sacred, inviolable day, carved out for enjoying the fruits of labor and doing so religiously every week in order to both honor God and God's creation. The creating and liberating God, who has freed human beings from bondage, invites us to Sabbath. God intends that all of life be meaningful to all human beings. The injunction of the commandment is not only to rest ourselves, not only to allow our entire community to rest, but to facilitate communal rest together. It would be cheating to ask or demand that someone else work on our behalf during the Sabbath, and by extrapolation, striving to acquire machines that can do every conceivable labor for us, even jobs that we would not do without those machines, would also seem to violate the meaning of Sabbath. One final thought about this Jewish conception of Sabbath is that genuine repose and delight are not possible if human beings experience the bulk of life as meaningless drudgery. Again, in Heschel's words, every day of the week is made to serve the glory of the Sabbath. And if we are so exhausted by the workaday world that we are unable to enjoy and take delight in creation, or so exhaust others that they are unable to take delight in creation, something is seriously wrong in the systems of the world and must be addressed as an urgent matter for spiritual repair. This, too, is a theme of Cole Arthur Riley's Confession. A tool of spiritual repair that I regularly lean on is my practice of Qigong, an ancient Chinese form of moving mindfulness that is the mother of Tai Chi and is deeply entwined with Taoist philosophy. In both Qigong and Taoism, rest is not seen as mere inactivity, but as a crucial way to harmonize body, mind, and spirit, to restore vitality, and realize a more natural, we might in today's speak say, a more ergonomic way of being. There are many ways in which this worldview embraces or cultivates rest. In both Qigong and Taoism, stillness and quietude are essential for allowing the body and mind to deeply relax, to rejuvenate, and heal. Taoism, with other Eastern spiritualities, teaches us that when we still our disordered desires, the authentic, true self awakens in love and compassion as its natural movement. By letting go of excessive thinking, striving, and attachment, we can settle into a restful state of openness and flow. And we're going to practice a bit of that in a bit with a meditation on breathing. Taoism also emphasizes the principle of Wu Wei, or the art of effortless action, which is a state of being in harmony with the natural flow of things without striving or forcing. This is the restful approach allows one to conserve energy and act with greater ease and effectiveness as we gather the energy around us, focus it into love and compassion, let it flow through our entire body, bring it back up to our heart center, and share our compassion with the world as it in turn regenerates us. Taoism also sees humans as embodied in the natural world and encourages us to align ourselves with nature's rhythms, which include regular periods of rest, stillness, and renewal. Spending restful time in nature is a common Taoist practice, well aligned with the Sabbath principle of taking delight in creation. So, how is it that our Western culture seems to be so removed from the spiritual embrace of Sabbath and rest that are so intrinsic to the mysticism embraced by both Judaism and Taoism? This remove, I believe, is one of the ways in which Christianity has missed the mark. Quakers, too, have historically followed the precept that the old law had been fulfilled by Jesus on the cross. In other words, the old law and the old God of the Old Testament has been superseded by a new and improved God of the New Testament. To quote a 16th century theologian, when the Sabbath lost its force, it forfeited the name, therefore ought not to be so called. And so, having lost both force and name, it became nothing at all, but a mere idol. Just as Quakers have rejected sacraments like the Eucharist because Christ commanded his disciples to remember him whenever they ate and drank, we Quakers have preached that every day is holy and no day should be set apart from the others. Quakers argued that Christians should at all times, not one day each week, be aware of their union with God. Rest, they argued, would be found in their faith in Jesus, echoing the Gospel of Matthew, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Yet, the early Quaker emphasis on rest at the end of days was not accompanied by an emphasis on liberative rest. Indeed, Benjamin Franklin's notorious remark that there will be sleeping enough in the grave could have been made by early friends. Even so, despite the absence of developed Quaker thought on restorative or liberative rest, there is an abundance of Quaker thought that aligns well with both menucha, delight in creation, and wu wei, effortless action. Our testimony on simplicity invites Quakers to remove ourselves from crass materialism in order to liberate ourselves and others from anxieties and inequities. The practice of extended silent prayer and holy listening in Quaker worship, so that we can hear the promptings of the Spirit and benefit from continuing revelation, aligns with the idea of creating some peace within the noise of the world so that we can truly attend to the divine. Sometimes we sing the words of Quaker poet John Greenleaf Whittier, and so I find it well to come for deeper rest to this still room, for there the habit of the soul feels less the outer world's control. At the same time, there is much within Christianity and the Religious Society of Friends that continues to militate against the concept of Sabbath rest. Rather than practicing menucha, delight in creation, or wu wei, the art of effortless action, we, Quakers, are predictably driven to productivity. If we have rejected turning our lives into a giant shopping spree, we are nonetheless tempted to pack every waking minute with urgent activities that must be done now. The goal of a simple life with ample time to enjoy the fruits of creation and attend to the sacred too often feels elusive. As Cole Arthur Riley reminds us, rest requires community acceptance and support, as well as individual intention. And yet, the world's faith traditions and our own intuition keep nudging us to embrace a healthy spirituality that can embrace effortless action, can balance chores and delight, can balance grief for the world with resting in the grace of the goodness beyond being, the beloved, and the Holy Spirit. I will close this morning with a poem by Wendell Berry that celebrates both menucha and wu wei. The Peace of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I awake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lay down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.